Whoa, new background, what is this? Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't mention this in my most recent videos, but I'm gonna be here in Albuquerque for the next couple weeks, so I'm just letting you know that now. And also, since I'm talking about a season of TV, I'm gonna give you a spoiler warning. This season just wrapped up, so I'm gonna wanna talk about what happens in the finale, and certain things I like throughout the season. So, you've been warned. Alright, let's talk about some Star Wars. Star Wars: The Bad Batch. Season 1. So yeah, Season 1 of The Bad Batch just wrapped up on Disney Plus, and they confirmed that Season 2's coming next year. So The Bad Batch is a Star Wars animated show in the vein of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. In fact, if you watched the last season of Clone Wars, then you've met the characters who are your main characters in this show. The Bad Batch is a group of clones that are defective, they have certain mutations that grant them enhanced skills. And before I get into the members of this crew, I do want to give all sorts of props to D. Bradley Baker. This guy provided the voice for not just each member of the Bad Batch, but every single clone in Star Wars: The Clone Wars and this show, and also Star Wars Rebels. Since, you know, they are all clones, they have to have the same voice. Except for the Bad Batch, which with their mutations, they are gonna sound a little different from each other, but D. Bradley Baker still voices them all. That's just really impressive. I mean, the guy is a renowned voice actor. He's been in the business for years. I'm just saying he's great here. So first off in the Bad Batch, we have Hunter, who to me really just looks a lot like Solid Snake. He's more or less the leader of the group, and he's a really good tracker, you know? Like Aragorn in Two Towers. If they're looking for someone, he can lay down on the ground and be like, a hobbit lay here. Then we have Wrecker. He's the brute, you know, the big muscle with a heart of gold and a fear of heights. This guy's a lot of fun. Then we have Tech, who you can tell just by looking at him, he's the brains of the operation. You know, he's the Donatello of the group. He's the one who knows computers and all that. Then we have Echo. Now Echo, if you remember him from the Clone Wars, he was part of Rex's original clone battalion. But in the final season of Clone Wars, Echo joined the Bad Batch. So now he's part of this crew and he has his little, you know, droid cybernetic arm. He can hack into places and stuff. And finally, we have Crosshair. Now Crosshair is the sniper of the group. He has really enhanced marksman skills. But starting out at the beginning of this season, it starts out right where Revenge of the Sith is going on. Order 66 happens, and all the clones turn on the Jedi, thanks to those inhibitor chips. But the Bad Batch, because of their mutations, they are immune to the effects of those inhibitor chips. So they didn't turn on the Jedi like all the other clones did. With the exception of Crosshair, though. Crosshair's chip actually works a little bit, and so he decides to follow orders and join this new galactic empire that's coming about. This happens in like the very first episode of the season. Crosshair betrays and leaves the team to go with the Empire. So yeah, for this entire season, Crosshair is a bad guy. We don't like him. And then Crosshair's chip is boosted even more because Tarkin is like, yeah, we want that guy. Yeah, Grand Moff Tarkin, he makes a couple appearances in this season, along with that Vice Admiral Rampart dick. So now Crosshair is just full-on Empire pawn, full-on bad guy. And the Bad Batch now has to lie low. They now have to live in this forever changed galaxy. But one big part of the show I have not touched on yet is the character Omega. Omega is this little girl we don't even know is another clone at first. Yeah, she is another clone who ends up joining the Bad Batch because she's like, hey, I like you guys. Can I pal around with you? And so Hunter's reluctantly like, okay. We learn later on in the season that not only is she another clone, and not only is she another defective clone like the Bad Batch, but she's also a first generation clone, like an exact clone from Jango Fett. You know, like Boba Fett was. So Omega, who's pretty much Omega Fett, she's the same kind of clone that Boba is. She's like a daughter of Jango Fett or something. Which, alright, show, if you say so. I wonder why she wasn't revealed until now, but okay. But she is a really good character. I mean, you take one look at her and you know what kind of character she's gonna be. She's gonna be compassionate, she's gonna be curious about everything, because she's never left the planet of Kamino, which is where all the clones come from. So she's optimistic about everything. If someone needs help, she's gonna be like, we gotta help them, Hunter. That's what soldiers do. I'm not gonna do that accent, but it's a New Zealand accent. And so with Omega now part of the Bad Batch, they go around in their ship, the Havoc Marauder, and so a good chunk of the season is pretty episodic. You know, they just go on missions and they learn lessons. But you realize that the point of this show is to show you the birth of the Empire, how it started from the ground up. This season shows you the birth of the Stormtroopers. Because in the third episode, you see the very first Stormtroopers to exist. Because that Vice Admiral Rampart dick is like, we took these soldiers, we trained them, they're an elite squad. They'll do a lot better than your clones. And I was like, holy crap, these are the very first Stormtroopers, being led by Crosshair, so that's cool. Later on in the season, you actually see that they update their armor to look more like Stormtrooper armor. I saw that and I was like, oh my god, this is straight up the birth of the Stormtrooper. That's kinda cool. They're not clones, they're people, they're human beings, recruited by the Empire. I like that we got to see that in this show. Because again, this takes place like right after Revenge of the Sith. So this show is another bridge. It's a bridge from Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith over to Star Wars Rebels or Rogue One or the original trilogy. Really, it's a bridge from Clone Wars to Rebels. There is one character who we meet not too far into the season who I absolutely love, and that would be Sid. I love Sid. She's great. See, the Bad Batch goes to this planet Ord Mantell, where we have Sid's parlor, you know, this cantina-like place. And Sid is the one who gives the Bad Batch missions to do, you know, for a reward. But she's voiced by Rhea Perlman. If you don't know who that is, that probably means you you haven't watched the show Cheers. Rhea Perlman played Carla Tortelli in Cheers, and Sid is pretty much the exact same character, except now she's running the joint. She's got that no-nonsense attitude, she doesn't want to put up with anyone's crap. She's rude, but you like her anyway. I loved it. I was like, this is Carla just in animated form. But now she's taken over Sam Malone's job, and it's great. And speaking of characters though, there are a lot of characters this season who pop up as guests, who, if you've watched other Star Wars shows, you know them from there. Like the very first episode already throws us the unexpected when Caleb Dune shows up as a young Padawan. Caleb Dune would later go on to be known as Kanan Jarrus, one of the main characters in Star Wars Rebels. So right there, I was like, holy crap, that's awesome. Same voice actor too? That's great. We also have Saw Gerrera showing up in that same episode. Fennec Shand shows up a little later on. We saw her in the trailer, and she's voiced by Ming-Na Wen. We remember her from The Mandalorian, but now this takes place about 25 years before The Mandalorian, so she's not in the service of Boba Fett yet. She's just a bounty hunter going on her own way. She's after Omega. We don't know why yet, I don't think, but Omega's a hot target. A lot of people are after her, including another bounty hunter who we know from the Clone Wars, Cad Bane. Yeah, I was really surprised when he showed up. I was like, oh, I was not expecting that. And so there's a point where both Cad Bane and Fennec Shand are after Omega, and they end up fighting each other. It's really cool, because they're like, oh, here are these two characters I know from other shows, now showing up in this show, and they're fighting each other. That's always cool. Of course, we have Rex showing up a couple times. I was pretty happy to see him, though. I was like, oh, it's Rex. He's not in it for long, but I did want him to mention Ahsoka at some point. He didn't. I mean, there was one point where they were like, how did you get your inhibitor chip out? And he's like, I had help. Because yeah, there's a point where even though the inhibitor chips don't seem to be working on the Bad Batch, Rex is overcautious. He's like, nah, you can't be too sure with those things. We gotta surgically remove them, just to be safe, you know? Which I get, totally. So they do, and so now we know that there is no chance that the Bad Batch is going to turn to the dark side. They're not joining the Empire anytime soon. But my favorite instance of guest characters from other shows showing up in this season has got to be Hera Syndulla showing up. Yeah, we go to the planet Ryloth and we see Hera and she's just a kid because her parents are part of the planet's government and they're being taken over by the Empire. But just seeing Hera Syndulla with Chopper, I was like, oh my god, I did not see that coming at all. I was completely blind to it. So I love seeing her. I was like, oh, she's just a kid. We know her as an adult in Star Wars Rebels. You know, she's one of the main characters. She's part of the main crew of the Ghost. She's the pilot. It is kind of coincidental that she already has Chopper as a kid. I would have assumed that she met Chopper a little later on in her life, but it doesn't matter too much. We have young Hera and Chopper, and I love these episodes. She's in 2 of them. I love how Hera gets along with Omega. They become friends. They talk about flying. It was just great to see. But it's really in these episodes where we get to see how this new galactic empire is affecting the galaxy. They're like, yeah, we are in charge now, and a lot of planets don't like that. You see that in these episodes, and you're like, yeah, this really is the birth of the Imperial era of Star Wars. I feel like that's really the reason this show exists. I mean, yeah, I love the main characters and all, and of course you need to have main characters. But the fact that we see the birth of the Imperial era, it gives this show relevance. You know, relevance to the main Star Wars timeline. And then we get to the finale of season 1. Again, I'm gonna give you another spoiler warning just in case you haven't watched the finale yet. Alright, you've been warned, here we go. See, the Empire with their new stormtroopers, they're being like, hey, we don't need clones anymore, so let's just waste Kamino. And so they do. They bring down their big old Star Destroyers on top of Kamino and they just wreck the place. So yeah, that whole city in Kamino that we first saw in Attack of the Clones gets completely blown up by the Empire. Kind of like a mini Death Star on Alderaan, if you will. But the Bad Batch is down there because Hunter was taken there, so the rest of the crew was there to rescue him, and that's when Kamino gets blown up. So now the crew, you know, Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, Omega, Echo, they're in there and they have to escape. And also Crosshair is there too, because he's the one who took Hunter there. So now we're like, okay, Crosshair, what, are we gonna bring him back? Are we gonna try to bring him back? There's a point during this finale where Hunter's talking with Crosshair, and Hunter's like, look, it's your inhibitor chip. It's not your fault. Your chip is making you act like this. But then Crosshair lies to him. He says, I had my chip removed long ago. This is just who I am. I was like, he's lying, because we saw at the beginning of this season that Tarkin had his chip boosted in his head. So yeah, Crosshair has his chip in there. I don't know why he's lying to Hunter about it not being in there. Maybe it's to get Hunter off of his ass about that problem. That's probably it, actually. But while they're escaping, we get to a point where Omega does save Crosshair's life, because again, that's just who Omega is. She has to save everybody. And when they're getting back to the ship in those capsules, Omega's capsule gets hit by debris, and she's going after that AZ droid, and they're both gonna sink, but Crosshair rescues them. Crosshair saves their lives. And I was like, okay, is he switching sides now? Is that what's happening? Turns out he did it just to get even, because he decides, he's given a choice. Hunter's like, you don't have to join the Empire, you can come with us, we're your brothers after all. But no, Crosshair actively decides to be like, I want to join the Empire, I want to be there when they take over the galaxy. To which I was like, wow, Crosshair, my man. I like him as a villain, but geez. I am pretty sure that he will eventually come back to the group. You know, he'll redeem himself in one way or another somewhere down the line. I mean, I could be wrong, he could die a villain. Really, those are his two choices. Crosshair can either die a villain or live long enough to see himself become become a hero again. His two life paths. You might say that Crosshair is at a crossroads. But in the end, that's where this season leaves off. Everyone's safe, they get out of there, but they leave Crosshair on Kamino, and so he's gonna go back to the Empire. In the end, I really enjoyed this first season of Star Wars The Bad Batch. And actually, I did watch it week by week. I never stopped watching and binged the rest of it once it was wrapped. No, I actually kept up on it every week. I watched each new episode. I honestly can't remember the last time I did that with a season this long. But that is how good this show is. That, or it's probably the fact that I never watched Clone Wars when it aired, or Rebels, so this is me making up for it by watching Bad Batch as it's airing. But it's good. I really enjoy it. I hope we see more of those guest characters in the later seasons, like Fennec Shand and Cad Bane and Hera Syndulla. I really want to see more Hera. That'd be awesome, because she's great. And of course, I'm looking forward to season 2. A lot of good Star Wars stuff coming up, actually. The Book of Boba Fett's coming out in a few months. Where's our trailer? Then, of course, we have Mandalorian season 3. Star Wars Visions is coming next month. So yeah, I like where we're at with Star Wars right now. So, Star Wars The Bad Batch, Season 1. Have you watched it? What do you think about it? And who's your favorite character in there so far? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.